Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Newsmakers Journal of the Plague Year. I'm Jerry Roberts. It is Monday, November 2nd, count 'em, one day until Election Day. And we are here, of course, talking about nothing else with my Calbuzz partner, Phil Trounstine. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing okay, partner.
Yeah, how's your dread level?
It's my blood pressure is pretty high. I I I think I think it's tweaking. It's tweaking pretty good.
All right. Well, here, let's pretend for just a moment that we live in a normal reality in
Okay.
which Joe Biden is now leading, this is according to Real Clear Politics averages, leading nationally 6.8%, leading in Florida 1.7, Michigan 5.1, Wisconsin 6.6, and Pennsylvania 2.9. He slipped a little bit in those Sunbelt countries that states that Trump won, but still, you know, if it was a normal election, we'd say it's in the bag. Let's write the A matter and go to dinner, right?
Well, we would, but we wouldn't do it this time because because we've been wrong before. So, um, you would think that if the president of the United States did not suffer from premature inauguration, that we would be fine. But what's going to happen instead, I think, is unless Biden has a convincing uh, lead in Florida when the votes are announced on Tuesday night, Trump is just going to claim victory as soon as Pennsylvania is done, as soon as the vote, as soon as it's 8 o'clock in Pennsylvania, because uh, he, he's got this sort of this theory of the case that if he proclaims victory, then he can argue that everything that's counted after 8 o'clock on November 3rd is the Democrats simply stealing the election, and he'll do that with his from the bully pulpit, and he'll do it in court. That's their strategy. Their strategy is not at this point to win the election, but to take the election.
Yeah, no, I think that they're, you know, and I want to talk about, uh, you know, suggestions for the viewers on watching election night coverage. But I think there's, you know, I was trying to think of all these different scenarios that could take. There's only two scenarios. One is Biden's going to win a huge, smashing, nationwide, uncontrovertible landslide, or everything else. And everything else is, as you say, Trump's going to try to hang on to the White House, and he's going to do everything that he can. Of course, votes are never counted on election night, and
They
of
can't be.
course, elections aren't over when the polls close. I mean,
No,
they're over when the votes are counted.
they're over. I mean, the military vote, for one thing, is almost always counted late. It's almost all those overseas voters um, from the military. They most of them don't get there by November 3rd, and we know that that's part of the process. The process is you you continue to count votes as long as they've been sent before November 3rd, and depending on what the state's limit cutoff is, sometimes it's November 3rd. They have to arrive by then. Sometimes it's a week later. Sometimes it's 9, 10 days later. Um, but they certainly won't be counted by the night of November 3rd in many, many states. Florida, fortunately, starts counting those votes, those absentee votes, early. So when Florida announces its vote, if it's very strongly Biden, um, that's a really good sign for Joe Biden because when I've tried to you can make the maps, you can screw around with the maps all you want, but if Biden wins Florida, I don't see how Trump wins the presidency.
No, no, that's right. Um, Let me back up a second, because the other
Yeah,
thing about normal times,
yeah,
normal for us is back when we used to take hammer and chisel and carve our election day stories into stone, and
right.
and the news editor would come around once an hour and say, where's that story? You know, until maybe 1 or 1:30 in the morning, then you were done. And what happened is you would call some of the races, and a lot of the races you wouldn't call, which
Right.
made Wednesday the worst, most miserable day of the election of all, because you'd be up late drinking, and then you had to come in and straighten it all out the next day. So this
Right.
is not like something new that we're not finding out, but because of this information bubble that he lives in and his supporters live in, all of a sudden, you know, we got to have them all counted. All right, so I just a
That's
couple.
absolutely correct. And one added factor to that, it's not just his information bubble, but we have become increasingly dependent upon sort of instant information. All of us have. And so
Yes.
we expect to know if there's a fire that's broken out in Paris, we think we should know about it right now. If there's a shooting in Delano, we think we should know about it instantaneously. We expect that now. And that's not the way voting works.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to dazzle you with some actual facts here now.
Okay.
Okay. There are exactly 9 states that say they will have 98% of the vote counted by noon on Wednesday. 9 states. So 41 states aren't, and the District of Columbia. 22 states and the District of Columbia will continue to count ballots that are postmarked. So that'll go into the end of the week at least. And then you have states like Michigan and Pennsylvania, which aren't going to start counting in most counties. So that's going to go, you know, a week or 10 days. But you can just see Trump going out, you know, the day after the election and having these rallies in Pennsylvania, you know, saying stop the count and
Don't let them steal the election.
don't let them steal the election. And then, you know, and he's got Bill Barr in the Department of Justice. You know, who knows what they're going to do, or the military, or any other things. All right, before we get to, because 78 days after the election, he's still president. So that's why I say it's either a Biden landslide or we're in.
Or anything else. You know, for our viewers, if there are any, there are a few counties. There are a few counties where if you use your computer and just go to the Secretary of State's office, say in the state of Florida, you can get a good sense of where things are. I'll mention just a few. One is Duval County, Duval County in Florida, which is where Jacksonville is. Another is Pinellas County, which is where Tampa St. Pete is. That's Pinellas. And of course, Miami-Dade. Those kinds of counties, if you wanted to click on the Secretary of State's office and then look up those counties, if Trump is not doing well in those counties, that's a really good sign for Biden on election night. Another place would be Stark County in Ohio. If you want to like get into it, look up Secretary of State's records and then go to counties and states. Those are some places that you can get some early hints about where the vote's going. I know Mike Murphy this time around, our old friend Mike Murphy believes that Ohio is sort of the key tipping point. I think I tend to still believe it's Florida, but certainly if Biden were to do well in Ohio, I think isn't it true? No Republican president has ever won without winning Ohio.
Yeah. Now, just to let's walk through some of these states. Florida's going to polls close at 4 p.m. our time. They can't report anything till 5 p.m. But when they report at 5 p.m., they are expected to have a considerable amount of the vote.
Right.
However, the other thing I think that folks need to look out for is not to get too high or too low on election night, because there's going to be these mirages and waves. And I think the first rush of votes in Florida will be strongly Biden, because they're going to be vote by mail. So you kind of got to wait for the second wave when the day of Trump vote starts to come in, and then figure that the third wave would be probably Biden as well. Those will be late mail votes, but Miami-Dade County is saying, yeah, maybe we'll get them counted, maybe we won't. But the rest of the counties um, look like we should have almost complete results from Florida. So again, if that goes Biden's way, that's a good thing.
Right, but Pennsylvania is such a huge mess.
Oh, Pennsylvania's. Then at 4:30, we got North Carolina, which is another big state where if Biden does well, Trump won it last time. If Biden takes it away from him, that's a very bad sign for Trump. They're talking about having 80% of their vote tomorrow night, but they have a 9-day count. They continue to accept ballots, but that Senate race in North Carolina between Tom Tillis, the Republican incumbent, and Cal Dick Picks Cunningham is another thing to keep an eye on. So North Carolina be something you want to watch early on.
Right. All right. So you and I are watching Florida. We're watching North Carolina.
Then we're going to take a look at Georgia, which polls close at 4, and we got those that Senate race there.
Right.
Between Sonny Perdue and John Ossoff.
Yeah.
So, again, the Senate races could tell us a lot about what direction the night's going, even without the presidential vote, although it's unclear how.
The Biden campaign must have polling that tells them they think Georgia is within reach because they sent Obama there today.
Yeah.
And he is their most valuable surrogate. And so in some ways he's better either than either of the candidates on their ticket as a crowd pleaser. And so sending Obama there is a clear sign from the Biden campaign that they think they've got a shot at the presidency and possibly at least one Senate seat.
Yeah. Yeah. Real Clear has Georgia 2/10 for Trump this morning, so tied.
But Georgia, the Real Clear Politics average includes some very screwed up polls. I have to say, I give Real Clear Politics credit in some ways for keeping track of all these polls, but they include, for example, the Trafalgar poll in there. Well, that is like, one of those rump ass Republican scattershot polls that it's a propaganda poll. It's like, and they include Rasmussen in there. Some of the others who are doing averaging take into account the quality of the poll before they actually enter it. Real Clear Politics just takes their number.
Yeah, yeah. And I should have mentioned too that 538, Nate Silver this morning gives Trump a 10% chance of winning, Biden a 90% chance. 10%, let us note, does not mean 0%.
Right. Well, and like I say, there are some, I think, for example, it's fine that Biden, that the Biden campaign has made some moves in Texas, but nobody should expect Texas to vote for a Democratic candidate for president. If it happens, it's extraordinary and a fluke. But I think you got to put Texas in Trump's camp as part of your basic count. And when you add up, and Georgia as well, it should be a Trump state. Even Florida should be a Trump state. Pennsylvania should be a Biden state, but it might not be.
Yeah.
He's from Scranton, for God's sakes.
Yeah. I mean, we're really talking about two categories of states. There are the Sun Belt states that Trump won last time.
Right.
That he needs to win again.
Right.
Florida, Arizona, North Carolina, Georgia, and Texas. So if Biden were to take any one of those, he would be sitting really pretty. So Texas will come out at 5. Then Arizona, we're going to start to see results shortly after 6 p.m. And I would say that's the next big thing if you're looking to watch election night like a pro, is to keep an eye on what's going on in Arizona. Again, I think you'll see some of the early votes will be very heavily Biden because of the mail-in. It'll swing back to Trump. But again, they're saying they're going to have a lot of their vote, probably most of their vote. And again, there's a Senate race there that we can keep an eye on. Republican Mark McSally and
right. What's annoying about election night coverage is that they frame it as if it were a horse race. He's up, he's down, he's ahead, he's back. That's just how the count's going.
Yeah.
The vote's already been decided. It's not really a horse race. It's just the count that is variable.
Yeah. And then,
But that's how they maintain viewers.
If Arizona is all bollocksed up, then we are into the Midwest states. Wisconsin, it seems like there's a decent chance we'll get a fair amount of vote on election night. They're talking about having it done early the next morning, but with Michigan and Pennsylvania, it's just not going to happen. And Pennsylvania in particular has emerged as what we thought Wisconsin was earlier, for whatever reasons. What do you make of the fact that Trump has had all these large rallies, large number of rallies, across all of the battleground states, across everywhere? Is it going to make any difference? Is it going to A, get him any votes, or B, is it going to increase turnout in his base?
I think it will increase turnout in his base. I think there's no question that when he does these kinds of events, he charges up his base. As you know, his base isn't enough to win the presidency.
Unless he gets those 77,000 votes again.
Unless he suppresses the vote in Milwaukee and in Detroit and in Philadelphia. If that happens, and it may, then Trump pulls one out of the air once again. The one thing that should give us a little bit more confidence is that Biden's overall numbers have been better consistently than Hillary Clinton's were at the same points throughout the campaign. That is, where she was 2 or 3 points ahead nationally, he's 8 or 9 points ahead. Where she was maybe 1 point ahead in a certain state, he'll be 3 or 4 or 5 points ahead in that state. And I think they were smart enough to know that they shouldn't be dabbling in places that are pickups unless they've got the base nailed. I don't think they do think Pennsylvania's nailed.
No,
because Biden spent a lot of time there.
Yeah. He's been there. I mean, he's been there more than anywhere.
Right. And for good reason. Pennsylvania is a strange state. It's got, we said before, it's got Pittsburgh in the west, it's got Philadelphia in the east, and it's got Alabama in between.
And then, and we've had, another police killing of a black man in Philadelphia. And so there have been riots going on there. And you wonder how that's, the other thing I wonder about that, when you look at, okay, so say it's, it's jump ball, or Biden's a little ahead, or Trump's a little ahead and Biden's coming on. So basically Trump is going to make it sound like he stole the election. I mean, he won the election. So then what can he do? I mean, he could I suppose he could dispatch troops to say, there's riots in Philadelphia. We have to go protect those ballots, that haven't been counted, and they won't be counted in Philadelphia for a while. They're both sides are, just bristling with lawyers ready to go into court everywhere, precinct by precinct, almost vote for vote.
I think Trump is going to argue. Trump's lawyers will argue to stop the vote in some places and to ensure that the vote continues in others. It all depends. Their consistency won't bother them one iota. They'll argue different things in different places. Whatever they need to argue in a particular place, that's what they'll argue. If they think that keeping the vote open in Florida helps them because of a surge of their voters on the east coast of Florida, for example, um, then they'll argue that Florida should just count, 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 count. But if they think that stopping the vote in Pennsylvania is crucial, they'll argue to stop it in Pennsylvania. I, I don't. Maybe I'm wrong about this. I don't envision any military moves or armed moves by the state forces. Um, Although I don't think they're impossible, I don't envision them right now. I envision it much more as a court battle.
No, I think you're right. All right, let's talk about the Senate a little bit. Again, Dems need to win 3 seats if Biden wins the presidency. So Colorado we'll see pretty early on, and they have a long history with mail-in ballots, so they should
Right.
be good.
And I think Hickenlooper's got a really good chance.
So Hickenlooper, that's a pickup. That would be a pickup for the Dems there. And then again in Arizona.
But Doug Jones is probably not going to pull it out in.
Yeah, that's Alabama. That'll be early too. So
yeah, and I'm afraid that he's got a. He's not out of. It's not impossible, but I bet it's very tough.
Yeah, I think that's unlikely. And then Maine, ordinarily you would think we would see early, but they have, not only do they have the electoral college divided by congressional district, but they also have ranked choice voting, the four most feared words in the English language in Maine. So Susan Collins, who hasn't yet decided if she's going to vote for herself or not, that's got to be a pickup for the Dems too. Those three: Colorado, Arizona, and Maine, and then they need to win, one in North Carolina, Montana, Georgia, South Carolina. I think Lindsay's probably come back enough, and then that shock poll in Iowa that sent all the Democratic bedwetters running. 47 for Joni Ernst and 41 for.
There's an awful lot of people that thought that was an outlier of a poll, but we'll just have to see. I mean, there are a number of people who thought that because Seltzer is such a renowned pollster that's why it was such a devastating result. But look, even great pollsters have bad results once in a while, and she does a random digit dial call. She doesn't call registered voters. She calls a by doing random digit dialing, you're giving every telephone exchange, including cell phones, an equal chance of being in the survey. And then what somebody's party is by what they say, and who they voted for by what they say. In other words, you're not calling from a list of registered voters where you can look and see, did they vote in 3 previous elections, and therefore they're a likely voter this time. So there's some inherent potential flaws in last minute election year polling with random digit dialing, unless you have really, really, really good questions to make sure you've got a voter, to make sure you've got the person in the right party. I mean, how many people these days are saying they are a Republican? And anybody who says he is a Republican is going to be an extreme right winger. And so if you're going to get a batch of Republicans in your sample, people who have self-admitted to being Republicans, those are extremely conservative folks. You follow me?
Yeah.
And so,
well, and I mean, maybe I'm mistaken, but my recollection is she kind of made her reputation polling the caucuses, right? I mean, she did Iowa caucuses. I mean,
that's where she got her initial reputation. But she's very well known in the polling world, and she's very well respected. Um, and but look, great pollster. ABC had a weird poll where they had Biden 17 points ahead in Wisconsin or something like that. I mean, some crazy result. And Gary Langer of the ABC polls, who does that polling for ABC Wall Street Journal or ABC Washington Post, he's a fabulous pollster. But every pollster can have a weird result once in a while.
All right. Um, okay, let's talk about California just briefly.
Okay.
Assuming that for a moment, not that I'm expressing any confidence whatsoever that Biden should win, then of course Kamala Harris becomes the new vice president. That Senate seat is vacant, and who's Gavin going to appoint?
Well, there's several arguments on this. One is you you and I have talked about this. One theory would be you can't replace a black woman with anything other than a black woman. That would be one theory of the case. That politically,
Well, that
that's
would be
the
the Democratic Party's theory of the case, I would bet, just
that would
because,
be
I mean, the
that
National Democratic
would
Party.
be one argument. Now, the thing is, California doesn't have a big black population.
Yeah.
California has a big Latino population, and there's never been a Latino senator. So, and at least not in modern times, there may have been in ancient times. I'm not sure, but there's never been a United States senator who's a Latino. So that argues pretty strongly for somebody like Alex Padilla, who's close to the governor, the Secretary of State, or Javier Becerra, the Attorney General, and there's a few others around the state. But it would argue, I gotta think uh, uh, that the Secretary of State is the most likely appointee because he's so close to Gavin.
Be
What
very
do you,
close to Gavin. You
what's your
remember
thought? You think
uh,
Karen Bass?
back in, yeah, I think Karen Bass, just because I go to the, black women are the most loyal constituency of the Democratic Party, and it just ain't right. But I see your argument, and you and I remember covering Gavin Newsom's campaign, not in 2018, but in 2010, his ill-fated 2010 campaign. And Alex Padilla was about the only guy out there who he was still a legislator
Right.
who endorsed Gavin.
Right.
So
So that goes back a long way for Gavin.
yeah, yeah. So it's possible. It's possible. All right.
Well, the other thing is that the Secretary of State's pretty easy position to replace. I mean, the Attorney General is a tougher position to replace.
Yeah, I think Becerra's a better pick as a U.S. senator just because of his years of Washington experience. And
I do too.
and he knows how the town goes. All right. Well, I was mistaken. It was not 4 years ago today that we said Hillary Clinton had already won. It's 4 years ago tomorrow. So we didn't do it. We only did it on election morning. So we were only off by about 12 hours or so. But, having said that, we did say if we were wrong about what happens, we will publish a selfie wearing Dodger hats. And in fact, we did do that. So
I did do that.
we've paid our dues. However, you also wrote this sentence, I believe, Phil. So congratulations, Hillary. Just a mere 96 years after the franchise was extended to the other half of the population, you're about to become the first woman elected president of the United States. Good luck with that honeymoon. I begged you not to do that, Phil. You know that I did. So do you care?
You know, if it weren't for fake news, there wouldn't be any news either.
We were out front on that one. So do you care to make any predictions now?
Yeah, my prediction is here's my prediction. If the vote is fairly counted, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris will win. there is no guarantee that the vote will be fairly counted. I think if the vote is fairly counted, they win. But God knows what's going to happen because I don't trust Bill Barr. I don't trust Donald Trump, and to see to it that the vote is fairly counted. How about you? What's your prediction?
I believe that Proposition 15 will lose. That's my prediction.
What's your prediction on the presidency?
No, I mean, I think Biden will, triumph in the popular vote. I think there's a very small chance that Trump sneaks through this time with an inside straight in the Electoral College. But again, it's like all bets are off. I mean, we've never had an election like this one with the pandemic, with all the mail-in voting, and with the president of the United States, running against the election for the last 6 months. I mean, that's what he's been doing. He's been delegitimizing the election. So 40% or more of the country believes it's going to be a huge shock if he loses.
Right.
So, yeah, I won't put anything past the guy. But if that's the way the deal goes down, it's going to be like, we're going to be like the Shia living in Iraq under Saddam Hussein and the Sunni government. Because, I mean, how long can a democracy go on with a minority, a tyranny of the minority over the majority of people? It's crazy.
I don't know. I don't. I fear for our grandchildren if that's the case. I truly do.
All right. Well, on that happy note,
you and I are old enough to won't matter.
On that happy note, we will leave it there, and we either will or will not be back with you. We may be moving to Vancouver or other places after the votes are counted in Pennsylvania, but we'll see. Thanks, Phil.
All right,
Thanks for watching, everyone.